See a hall packed with people, especially after a very long hiatus due to COVID. So thank you all, firstly, for being here and wanting to attend, sessions physically. Um, we're going to talk today about the whole resilience, bounce back that the sector has shown. And is this a precursor or not to see a growth in the next 5 years that we have probably not seen in the last 15? And just to set the tone, I can give you some interesting data. We tend to look at our current performance with pre-COVID numbers. That's what we've been doing, right? Because that was the immediate need, the threat from COVID and what we did pre-COVID and post-COVID. But there's an interesting piece of data which has got buried, is that the highest ADR that we did was actually in the year 2007, right? And 15 years later, we have not reached anywhere close to the ADR that we did in 2007, right? So 2007, 69% India-wide occupancy and 8,000 rupees ADR, all right? This year, taking an estimate for the next 2 months, India-wide will close at around 62% at just maybe touching 6,000 rupees as ADR. That's really the context, right, of what we're trying to discuss. And why there's been fabulous resilience, bounce back, and we've come back very quickly. There was a time in 2020 when we finally realized the seriousness of the problem, that we were not all sure how quickly this is going to come back. And many people thought that this will take a lot longer. Fortunately for all of us, that hasn't happened. We bounced back much quicker. But it's interesting to see where we are going from here. So here's to all the wonderful stalwarts, including Anuraag. You can raise your hand and say hi. There you are. Who is virtual. One of the things that happened in COVID is people like Anuraag can join us virtually still, while he can't make it physically. So let's start with the first question, that given the buoyancy and a rare aggression in the industry, not seen for a fairly long time, is this a temporary post-trauma sort of feel-good phase, or do you find sufficient evidence for a continued, different, more determined, and more self-assured player in the coming years? So let's start from you, Sudeep, and let everyone just take a minute to answer this in circulation.
In my view, it is here to stay for long. It's not a temporary blip. And to me, the evidence around that is, this time the growth is more pervasive. Number one, it is across segments. It's across A, B, C, D cities. It's a structural change because the business is predominantly domestic rather than international. And also, I think that, and I'm not just looking at revenues, I'm looking at development, and I'm looking at profits as well. I think during COVID, I think we all managed to become more efficient, whether through digitization or through people or doing more with less. And those things, I don't think so, are reverting back to what it used to be pre-COVID. I think we've kind of learned our lessons, if you will, or it's taught us. I shouldn't say it's learned lessons, but it's taught us, and I don't think we're going to unlearn that anytime soon. Besides the fact that there's still the segment which is missing, which is the corporate segment, is as much as what it used to be. And I don't think that what has happened is we've substituted that segment with other segments. And I don't think that when the corporate segment comes back, that segment's going away, which is replaced with the corporate segment. So for me, this is a much longer term phenomena rather than a temporary one.
Is the next 6 months going to the next 12 months. The medium term, which goes from the next 12 months to the next 36 months, and the long term, which goes into the horizon beyond that. And if you see historically, it's of course, I think history doesn't stand anymore because we've defied all logic. And currently, if you see where we are in the Indian scheme of things, I think our variables are counterintuitive and counterindicative of what's happening in the world out there. So in the short term, I think the supply situation will remain stable. The demand situation, of course, India, I think the base has gone up. We'll have larger base of customers, which means the pricing is going to go up, right? Now, the interesting thing is, and we can always go back and see, whenever the hotel industry starts touching 70% or 65%, suddenly there's a lot of interest in the segment. And then that's where everybody starts coming in thinking the ROIs are great in this segment. Let's start building up. This is as good as gold. And then suddenly you will see, there is going to be a huge plethora of investment coming in and build up coming in. And by the way, the average life of a project in India is about 60 months or 5 years. So in the longer term, we will have an oversupplied situation again, which is going to, so that's the 7-year cycle. Now, where we stand, I think the next 6 to 12 months look good, if that's an answer for now. And what happens beyond that is, I think, a much, much longer, deeper discussion, which we can, take several hours to discuss.
Okay, so we don't have several hours. We're still going to discuss the long-term plan, Zubin, but I'm going to let you get away with this for now, but we'll come back to you in a little while later. But I'm going to come to my good friend, Rohit. Rohit, what's your view?
On one of the points you mentioned, whether all of it is going to grow, I think I have a different point of view. There was some revenge travel, as everybody spoke about. And by the mere classification of revenge travel, revenge can't really go on forever, right? So it's not going to go on forever. It's going to peter out. And I think all of us are noticing that kind of business is reducing. The good part is that the traditional business that was always there is recovering and is coming back. So that's good. I want to talk about basically new businesses. So what COVID did was it came up with new opportunities for people to travel. And I think organizations that seize that opportunity will see a new segment of business coming in. And I think that segment is not only going to stay, but it's also going to grow. So for example, if we take homestays, people want leisure travel, but they want leisure travel amongst family. We want to create memories. They want to they are going in for experiences, and it's no longer a holiday. It's going in for an experience that creates a lifetime memory, right? So for that, homestays is a good business that we as IHCL have embarked on, and AMA has already crossed over 100 as we speak, and it's a fast expanding business for us, and we don't see anything less than 500 coming up in the next couple of years. So that is a new line of business, and it's a new segment of business, and that is definitely here to stay. The second part is digital business and online business. And if you look at food and beverage business, which is traditional, that continues to grow. New outlets will come, new ways of doing business will happen. But yes, things like cloud kitchen is gaining traction in the food and beverage space. And obviously online business like Qmin that we have is also growing. So which was started off in the pandemic to get the business to go into customers' residences. Today, it's a new line of business. So Qmin has already diversified from being just an online platform for us, an app. It's also diversified into QSR. It is diversified into also retail stores. So it's a totally new line of business. So the point I'm trying to make is that while we saw certain segments go off, there were new segments of business that have come on in. And when I look at food and beverage, which is almost 50% of most of the large companies' top lines here, I think a focus on food and beverage and new segments of food and beverage is encouraging and definitely a way for the future.
You've touched on a number of topics which are in subsequent questions, but regardless, I'm going to first come to Anuraag to complete the first round, and then we'll take on the next questions from there. Anuraag, what's your view?
Hi, Mandy. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm not there in person. My bad, missing the energy in the room. Couldn't agree more with what Sudeep said, the tone and what Rohit wound up. Yes, we don't see this business going away anywhere, at least for the next 3 to 5 years. There are a lot of lessons that we all learned during COVID, and I guess we agreed we learned how to do a lot more with a lot less, given the constraints. I think all organizations have become more efficient without mitigating or diluting the guest experience. There has been a lot of new customer acquisition that Rohit alluded to across all segments, not just food and beverage, even on the room side of life. Typically, our portfolio in the luxury space had almost 68% of international business portfolio wide. So 68% of all room nights were international. And I think the early trends that we are seeing, other than the UK market, all the countries have reached anything between 50 to 55% of international business, which was pre-COVID. And I think the good news has been that this business has been all inclusive on retail, on MICE, on small groups, and even small early beginnings of corporate as well. Some of our city center hotels have already exceeded the pre-COVID occupancy. And the good news for us is eventually and finally, we see the ADRs coming to what ideally in the regions of what they ought to have been 3 years back. Today, if we talk of just Leela portfolio, we are, despite the debacle of the Q1 on ground of Omicron, we are sitting and trending at closing at a 122% in terms of the gross operating revenues of pre-COVID levels or 2019 levels as a base year. And our business plan and strategy for the next 3 years, we are looking at high double-digit growth across all our hotels, resorts, and city hotels. I also believe that more and more people are now seeking experiences, experiential travel, experiences that add value to their life. They have a propensity to spend more, stay longer, consume a larger, higher category of rooms, take the villas and the suite. We have seen the premium paid occupancy rise across all our hotels. Somebody spoke about new segments in terms of working from hotels. That's still happening. So a short answer, and not even getting into the EBITDA and the profitability side of business, I think eventually we have come to even Stevens, and we'll only grow from here.
I'm done. Now, interestingly, everyone is talking about new segments, new businesses, right? Sometimes when I ask hotels, how are you doing? They say we're doing phenomenally well. I said, but who's coming to your hotels? I don't know, but I'm doing exceedingly well, right? I think somewhere the whole segmentation of customers has gone a little awry due to COVID, and we've had many new kinds of customers coming to our hotels. And while hotels are certainly doing exceedingly well, are we sure we really know who this customer is? And is he someone that is going to continue post whatever this revenge travel or whatever it is that we are talking about? Sudeep, can we start with you?
Talking about MSME, right? Like you said, Mandeep, everyone wants to go after them, but how do you go after them, and so on and so forth. And we've done something to that segment. So that's been a big, fillip to our hotels, given the segments we play in, and that's what appeals to them. But what we did is we have a program called Business Edge, right? So what that does is, I think appeals to that category of customers, where we say instead of getting loyalty points to individuals, we let you accumulate loyalty points to the company, right? Most of these people are entrepreneurs, 4 or 5 people. They never got to scale with loyalty points to get to segments, but now they do, and they can use that for their business travel, right? They've got a dedicated website. They get a standard discount for everything they want, right? Every booking, as long as you're a registered member of that MSME. We've partnered with the MSME organization in India to do that. Now, for us, that's a brand new segment, which may have been trickling into us, but there wasn't an outreach to that specialty group, which, as Rohit said, are segments which are growing and will continue to grow in the future, right? So that's one. The second one is what I call social MICE, right? Earlier, it was primarily weddings, right? And it may be partially the revenge bit of it, which is now, whether it's an engagement or it's a 40th birthday or 25th anniversary, or take any event, it is a reason to gather, right, and get people together. And I think, and that's again a segment which we focused on targeting. Now, again, I'm not saying these are new segments, but I don't think so. They were targeted, right? If they trickled in, great. But today there's a conscious effort to target these sectors.
On leisure travel, right? Leisure has been the sort of flag bearer during COVID. I think we've never seen leisure the way we do it, the way we do now. And there's been so much of rate growth in leisure markets. And interestingly, newer markets have shown greater rates or higher rates than our traditional leisure markets of Goa, Kerala, and Rajasthan, right? And part of this has been due to this whole nature of COVID and the way people wanted to get away, etc., and try newer destinations, and the fact that you couldn't travel overseas. Is this something that is going to stay? Is this real? The kind of rates that we're seeing in tier 2, tier 3, tier 100 cities for leisure destinations which were unknown and have now been put on the map by a lot of brands. You guys have done some great work there. Some of the rates that I see in some of your hotels are just, fabulous. So is this a trend that you see is here to stay, or is this going to soften?
I think the trend here is going to stay, and I say that for a few reasons. I think everyone has spoken about the new customers. We have seen that across our portfolio, typically who were our customers, and we started kind of analyzing it more because we had the time during the lockdown, and subsequently we put in some data experts and data analytics to better understand who our real customers were all across the hotel rooms, food and beverage, wellness areas, spa. So this new breed of customers, the Gen Zs and the millennials, who are the new luxury customers, they have a propensity of spending on themselves. They belong to a very well exposed, well traveled, internationally exposed generation. They really do not have the kind of a mindset they probably earlier used to exit, and they want to experience novelty, new experiences, seek out those specially curated things that are specially crafted for them. So I definitely believe, and they are willing to pay a price for it. So if I talk about pricing in some of the even traditional destinations that you mentioned, Kerala, and we have 2 hotels in Kerala now, and Rajasthan we have a few hotels. We have seen almost a 35% increase in average daily rates, and to the levels of between $700 to $1,000, especially in Udaipur. And if you do a deeper dive in terms of data analytics, whether from the retail side or through travel trade or direct bookings, you find the age group, the demographics have changed. So a lot more people traveling for a longer time, taking a higher category of rooms, villas, and suites, and spending more on themselves. This is a trend that we have seen, and I think COVID also provided a forced opportunity, call it revenge tourism, for more of this generation to start encompassing and embracing hotels. And there was a sense of democratization of luxury, and it became, the barriers and the boundaries were kind of removed on account of this compression that was created, and more people have started using hotels now. So we just welcomed a whole new generation of travelers into our hotel rooms, and we believe is going to stay.
So there's a counter view, and I'm going to ask you this, Rohit. There's a counter view to this, which says that international travel was closed for a very long period of time. A lot of the international travel, the upscale traveler, luxury traveler, could not travel abroad. So he needed to travel within the country, or at least find a place where he could take an escape. That traveler was very used to paying $300, $400, $500 or more in his international travel when he went, and he's therefore spending that money in India in some of these leisure destinations, and therefore these ADRs have gone up. And once international travel opens up and a lot of these people start going back and it's business as usual, are you still going to see this kind of rate parity? Or are you going to still see, what's your view?
Mind shift in most people and most travelers. Today, people have realized that having big bank balances or huge asset bases are not something that's really going to help you in life. what a lot of people have gone through in COVID and lost their loved ones. I think it's more about creating memories today. So where does this relate to the question that you have? Yes, people will resume international travel. That has always been an attraction for a lot of people traveling overseas. Yeah, they will. But more importantly, taking short weekend travel and also about the new social business that we were talking about. That is going to be something that is going to continue. So what is going to happen is that most of our business hotels, which were not doing that well during weekends, are now have a lot of the staycation business that is happening. And that business has come down to a level, but it's there. It's not as if it's disappeared. So if you say revenge travel and all that and staycation, now nobody's going to do it. No, even hotels like the one that we're sitting in today, Friday night, there are people checking in and they're checking out on Sunday night. They are taking the staycations. So it's a new way of having a holiday. Are the same people going overseas? Yes, they are. But you can't go overseas every weekend. Can you? So people still want to create memories on weekends. So I feel that this leisure business that is there will continue to grow. Actually, it will not reduce, it will continue to grow. The rates would continue to grow because I think in that particular segment, the demand will continue to outstrip the supply. There is not many good quality hotels in leisure destinations. A lot of new leisure destinations have been opened by various brands, and that is offering something new for people. So even if you say there's a fatigue, how often can you go to Jaipur, or how often can you go to Udaipur? There's a fatigue, right? But then there are other destinations that are coming up today, and whether it's in the hills or whether it's on the beaches, whether it's adventure tourism, all of that is picking up. For us, wildlife tourism has really helped, and there is a huge renewed focus on nature, on sustainability, and wildlife tourism has also picked up. So short answer, it's going to continue. I don't see it going away. It's going to be in addition to the international travel.
To borrow a phrase, right? It's like the tongue wants more. You tasted it now, so you.
Ye dil mange more. Rohit, you have an uncanny ability of picking up things that I'm going to ask next, so I'm a little worried. But I'm going to ask you this. Staycation, pleasure, these were words, fancy words we used to use pre-COVID, in presentations, etc. Today they become like sort of a, mainstay vocabulary for hoteliers, right? Is this in your experience, is pleasure and staycation is something that is now a more or less permanent thing? Because if it is, then the problem is solved, because Monday to Thursday, we never had a problem in the Indian hospitality industry. Our problem was Friday to Sunday. If we can sell this Friday to Sunday, then I think, it's QED.
These words are here to stay. I think we've only started appreciating what we should have started appreciating a long time ago. And I think suddenly taking a vacation within India and brand India has become more fashionable, rightfully so. And it's just fine to go for a holiday or a leisure, which is a business and leisure, or a staycation as often as you want, because one, it's convenient. Second, it can be taken more than once or twice a year. And thirdly, I think, coming out of the last couple of years, something fundamental has changed about consumer buying behavior in India and the world, I would say, not only India, across the world. There's been a realization that your freedom, that's my point of view, of course, that your freedom is perhaps even more important than life itself. Meaning that, when people are caged up in a house or their homes for several months, and they want to get out, and then they want to go and experience new things. And I think that has been the precursor of all this. So I think staycation is, of course, going to be here. It is just that market has now realized that there are new segments which can be permanently made available to the consumer. and leisure again would is also here to stay.
Anurag, in the luxury sector, memorial, the domestic traveler was very passe. Yeah, you guys never liked him, right? Said, is that sort of change? Is there a newfound respect for the domestic traveler? Is he now back in the reckoning?
Well, firstly, I don't think we would ever say that we never respected them adequately.
In public, I have to.
Huh?
Never in public, only in private.
Oh. But I can say yes. I think what I would say what we probably were able to do, because all these shutdowns and the lack of regular business allowed us to do, was to in many ways reset and reboot ourselves. And I'm sure all of my colleagues out here did the same in their organizations, to make the hotels more compliant and more welcoming and more adept. Now, Leela typically has always stood for as a symbol of true Indian luxury. And all our rituals, our programming, our Atithi Deva Bhava, our service cultures, even our palace services, everything has been programmed towards serving and with that kind of attention to detail and with the warmth and graciousness that is expected from Indian hospitality, but without the kind of intrusiveness and without being overbearing when it is delivering it. So I think the Indian, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, this new demographic, Indian travelers who are prepared to pay $500 to $700 a night, are of course very demanding. They are well traveled and exposed. They focus a lot on food and beverage. They know exactly the kind of experience that they're seeking. They need a lot more storytelling and a kind of a discovery, so that there is no destination fatigue. Even if you have been to Rajasthan, you may want to go and explore the leopard safari. You might want to have a dinner under the moonlights in a fortress, which is like a inside access to you. So we have seen this segment, and it's only growing. And despite our flights having opened up, and I agree the momentum for outbound is still not very strong, but we haven't seen this segment reducing. And if I look at forward bookings for the next 90 to 180 days, we don't see any degrowth there, especially in terms of small groups and social mice from domestic.
Short answer, you love the domestic traveler now.
Cannot ignore the reason why, your words, not mine, why people like Anuraag and Rohit may love the Indian customer now, because they can't ignore that, right? We make up 20% of the world population, right? We are the 5th largest growing economy, right? Growing the fastest this year. I was in this room about 3 weeks ago. There was a Republic conference. So the growth in India now across it has happened across the 31 states, right? So it's not in pockets, which is what it was earlier. The level of digitization and the transactions are more than in China and US combined, right? Which means the Indian traveler is much more lucrative and wanting, right, than ever before. If you choose to ignore that traveler today, God help you in the future.
So I'm glad that's happened. So kudos, a big round of applause for the domestic.
And to add to that, the socio side. Earlier, people lived in
At gardens, the kids could play around, and they played with the local kids around and so on, as I remember my childhood. Now they're living in multi-story buildings and in nuclear families, and as an outlet, they do need to travel and get something, right? You cannot ignore that change, and that change is not restricted to the major metros anymore.
Yeah.
So if you go to probably a 5-star luxury, which 15 years ago was predominantly international travel, today they'll be filled predominantly by Indians from B and C cities.
Thank you, COVID.
Mandeep, I have something else to share. Can I? So, there's also something else that has happened here. We have, over the last couple of years, commoditized the luxury product. As an industry, we were selling 5-star hotel rooms for even as low as 3,000 rupees, maybe lower, 2,000 rupees in places. What has happened out of that is there's a certain segment of the market which always used to go abroad, and they started now experiencing the Indian product. And there was another segment of the market which couldn't necessarily form up their mind whether they want to stay in a luxury hotel or not, even despite the fact that they could actually spend the money to get to stay in these hotels. I think what has happened as a result of forced discounting due to COVID is we have opened ourselves up and given a taste of uh, of hospitality to a certain segment of the market, which now likes it and is willing to step up to pay more. And that's where I think the
Surely.
market's really opened up for the long term.
Surely, quick question to you. You brought it up briefly. The alternate accommodation sector, right? Suddenly it's seeing exponential growth. Again, thank you, COVID. You're seeing the whole villa rental, homestay business. You guys have now announced publicly that there are going to be 500 amas. There are a whole lot of other players now. Do you think, and all the bigger brands are also now getting into it, is that something that is going to impact hotel leisure?
Good question. You see, the requirement of the customer who's for an AMA is very different from a requirement of a customer who's going for a leisure stay, let's say in Goa. If you want to go and stay at the Fort Aquada or the Taj Exotica in Goa, what you want to do there is very different because you want to be a part of a group of people. You want to be involved in large scale activity. You want large spaces. You want people around you. These are these extroverts who love having people around. May not be necessarily too much into really creating memories for themselves and the small families or amongst their friends. That's a different requirement. If you want to spend time with your loved ones or with your friends and your five families going together to a place and have it to yourself, that's a very different requirement than going to a leisure hotel, right? So therefore, it's two separate things. And I don't think one is going to eat the other. It's not going to happen. It's going to grow independently of each other.
Thing very interesting that I got as a forward from someone with the caption saying, "Ab ye bhi hone laga." And what was it was Make My Trip advertising hotels by 3 hours, 6 hours, and 9 hours. Now, is this a more dynamic and more aggressive form of revenue management? Or are we now willing to shed our inhibitions and say, this is on now? And gladly someone put the 3 hour, otherwise it would have been only 6 and 9, and that could have had very different connotations as well.
I think fortunately for us, our price points act as a good filter. So, I mean, you are welcome to check in at the times that you say, and you are welcome to leave when you want to. But I think our price points themselves determine that we usually don't have this kind of a short stay business. It's not a strategy that we pursue. We do not have that kind of clientele as well. So we don't see that as a revenue management extension. We do have stay extensions where we are more flexible in terms of pricing, but no hourly rates.
Thankfully. Sudeep, you want to comment on this?
So we do offer 4-hour rooms, but that's at the airport.
Okay.
Right? So transit, and that's a very lucrative segment. Let me be very clear about it. People coming in late nights, catching their flight to destinations, to Rohit and Anuraag's hotels, they like to stay at the airport. And that hotel does phenomenally well thanks to that. The rest is, as Rohit said, for the homestays, it's a different segment, right? Not one which we've targeted yet.
Okay. 3 hour, 6 hour, 9 hour.
Yeah, at the airport.
Good to go.
Absolutely. And by the way, in pilgrimage markets like Katra as well, in peak sold out nights and Navratris, you will have the selling rooms.
That's as dichotomous can get as the pilgrimage market with sort of short stays, is it?
Yes, in
Darshan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, there it is. For those of you who want to see it, I wasn't making this up. While most of everyone says that they're not doing it, obviously Make My Trip has got some hotels where this is happening. Interestingly, okay, before we're coming to the last few minutes of our sort of conversation, the sense that I get from all of you in this room and with the promises that you're making, and I'm going to ask you a question and then we'll conclude this, is that it really is buoyant. It really is a sort of turning point for the Indian hospitality industry. I think it's a coming of age time for the Indian hospitality industry. I think we're going to finally see rate growth as we should have seen compared to many of our Asian sort of counterparts in terms of occupancy, in terms of ADR. Somebody in my office very recently told me, listen, Mandeep, what's going on? I traveled and I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton and I stayed at the Four Seasons in Bangalore and Pune. And I paid 15,000 rupees. I mean, what's going on? I said, listen, you paid pittance. Which Ritz-Carlton and which Four Seasons in the world will you bloody get for 15,000 rupees? So get ready to pay 25, right? And I think that's the direction that we're going in. But I'm going to ask all of you to give me a number. If we are going to close this year at 6,000 rupees ADR, and we were talking about the last 15 over the next 5, then give me a number for 2027. Pan India, what's it going to look like? Okay. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Rohit. You can hazard a guess.
Well, a lot depends on the mix in the market or what kind of hotels are there, because pricing of hotels is very different. So we have a very, very aggressive expansion plan for the Ginger hotels. And they would be within that range, right? So they're not going to drive that.
It's okay. Let's make it easier.
It's too much of a cross section.
So therefore, I'll make it easier. Let's say whatever is your group ADR at this moment in time, 5 years later, where do you see it in terms of percentage?
Same store.
No, across. I mean, he'll have a group sort of number. Across, whatever that number is, where do you see it 5 years from now in terms of percentage growth?
2007.
No. ADR, only ADR. I'm talking
2000.
Sorry, 2007.
Okay.
Like for like, or are you talking?
No, across.
Like for
across your entire sort of chain. You'll have an ADR currently.
I think we will definitely, I think we'll set a new benchmark. If 2007 is the current benchmark for rates, 2027 will be a new benchmark.
Will be the new benchmark. Okay, great. I like that. Anuraag?
I think the next couple of years, we are looking at double-digit growth in ADRs. And after that, I think we'll stabilize to probably 6 to 7 odd %. So we're probably forecasting almost a 35 to 40% growth over where we are today. What we are ending, if 2023 is going to be a base year, and 2023, mind you, is in terms of ADR for us, is going to be almost a 27% growth over what it was in 2019. Presumably, if our ADR was $200 in 2019, is going to be a 27% growth over that for the portfolio. And we are expecting this to grow further into 35 to 40% over the next 5 years.
Okay, interesting. Sudeep?
So I think we'll grow at an annual rate over the next 5 years at about 5 to 6%. Now, there are two reasons for that. Number one is the same store today will probably grow at about, average about 8 to 9% every year. However, the mix, because the growth in Holiday Inn and Holiday Inn Express for us over the next 5 years is phenomenal. So the mix will shift from to a lower ADR hotel. So the group ADR as a consequence will get lower than the same store.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with what's been said here. In the higher segments, there's going to be a larger average rate growth. And I think a lot of inflation will also get priced into the room rates. In the India is going to be a mid-market growth story. India is, and that's the way I perceive it. And if you look at it at a portfolio level, a company like ours, we're running 110 hotels right now, will probably be much larger by then. That growth is going to come from mid-market growth. So there's going to be some price correction at a portfolio level happening there.
Fabulous. So this was a trick. This was a trick question. It's been recorded, all your answers. And I'm sending them to Ankur in your case, to Puneet, to Mr. Kachru, to Kenneth, for the numbers that you've spoken on stage. Now you're going to have to deliver these. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wonderful session.
Indian hospitality promises and it delivers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I hope I never have to deliver a market correction.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Anuraag, is there something that you're going to say, Anuraag?
No, I just wanted to say that I think one thing that we probably didn't discuss is how the rupee has devalued versus the dollar. which makes India far more exciting. And if you take the 20% correction, even with the 20% growth, we probably, in terms of dollar terms, are still where we were 2 years back or 2.5 years back.
I just want to make a quick point, and we're going to end it. It says time's up right now. If I was to take this year's ADR of 6,000 rupees and correct it by inflation each year, you will reach just the peak of 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being such a great audience.